Hello, this is Bill. So on the weekend it was my birthday, so today's video is my birthday book haul. So first is Witches of Kyiv and Other Gothic Tales. Selected works of Orest, Somov. So Orest Somov lived from 1793 to 1833. He was a Ukrainian writer who wrote in Russian. So in the Witches of Kyiv and Other Gothic Tales of Orest Somov, the supernatural is present throughout Ukraine, from a cemetery in Kyiv and Rus to an isolated forest cottage in the 17th century Cossack era to the society ballrooms of Somov's own world, the early 19th century. Gothic horror appears in many guises, including witches, warlocks, demons, and vengeful Rusalka. Strange soothsayers and malevolent visitors represent the forces of good and evil. Next is Thousand Cranes by Yasunari Kawabata. So Yasunari Kawabata lived from 1899 to 1972. He's a Japanese author, and he won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1968. And Thousand Cranes was published in 1952. Kaikuji has been invited to a tea ceremony by a mistress of his dead father. He is shocked to find there the mistress's rival and successor, Mrs. Ota, and that the ceremony has been awkwardly arranged for him to meet his potential future bride. But he is most shocked to be drawn into a relationship with Mrs. Ota, a relationship that will bring only suffering and destruction to all of them. Castle of Otranto by Horace Walpole. So Horace Walpole lived from 1717 to 1797, and he was an English writer. And the Castle of Otranto was published in 1764. Castle of Otranto is the first supernatural English novel and one of the most influential works of Gothic fiction. It inaugurated a literary genre that will be forever associated with the effects that Walpole pioneered. Professing to be a translation of a mysterious Italian tale from the dark Middle Ages, the novel tells of Manfred, Prince of Otranto, whose fear of an ancient prophecy sets him on a course of destruction. After the grotesque death of his only son, Conrad, on his wedding day, Manfred determines to marry the bride-to-be. The Virgin Isabella flees through a castle riddled with secret passages, chilling coincidences, ghostly visitations, arcane revelations, and violent combat combine in a heady mix that terrifies the novel's first readers. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. This was published in 1397. It's from an unknown author. A New Year's feast at King Arthur's court is interrupted by the appearance of a gigantic green knight, resplendent on horseback. He challenges any one of Arthur's men to behead him, providing that if he survives, he can return the blow a year later. Sir Gawain accepts the wager and decapitates the knight, but the mysterious warrior cheats death and vanishes, bearing his head with him. The following winter, Gawain sets out to find the knight in the wild northern lands and to keep his side of the bargain. One of the great masterpieces of Middle English poetry, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight magically combines elements of fairy tales and heroic sagas with the pageantry, chivalry, and courtly love of medieval romance. In a Glass Darkly by Sheridan La Fanu. Sheridan of Fanu lived from 1814 to 1873. He's an Irish author. This book was first published in 1872. So the Carmilla story in here was a vampire story that predated Dracula by 26 years. So this book contains the story Green Tea, The Familiar, Mr. Justice Harbottle, The Room in the Dragon Volant, and Carmilla. Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, 1811 to 1873, was one of the great masters of Victorian mystery and horror fiction and can be regarded as the father of the modern ghost story. In A Glass Darkly, one of his most celebrated volumes, purports to be the casebook of Dr. Hazelus, a pioneer psychologist. These 5 tales represent some of Le Fanu's most accomplished work, which rises above the staid conventions of the age. Tokyo Ueno Station by Miri. So Miri Yu was born in 1968. She's Korean, born in Japan. She now lives in South Korea and she writes in Japanese. Inspector Imanishi investigates by Seichō Matsumoto. He lived from 1909 to 1992. He's a Japanese writer and he popularized detective fiction in Japan. And this book was first published in 1961. Tokyo 1960s. An unassuming but respected homicide detective, Etaro Imanishi, has a knack for both writing haiku and solving crimes. But when a mysterious, unidentified body appears on the tracks of a rail yard, Imanishi has his work cut out for him. Soon he finds himself on a strange chase that takes him from the hip hangouts of avant-garde Tokyo to a spa in rural Honshu, and all the while the body count is climbing. "100 Years of Solitude" by Gabriel, García, Márquez. Gabriel García Márquez lived from 1927 to 2014. He's a Colombian writer. He got the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1982. And he popularized magic realism. And this novel was first published in 1967. "100 Years of Solitude" tells the story of the rise and fall, birth and death of the mythical town of Macondo through the history of the Budia family. Inventive, amusing, magnetic, sad, and alive with unforgettable men and women, brimming with truth, compassion, and a lyrical magic that strikes the soul. This novel is a masterpiece in the art of fiction. The Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens. So this was his first novel. So Charles Dickens lived from 1812 to 1870, an English writer. This novel was serialized from April 1836 to November 1837. The Pickwick Papers was Dickens' response to his publisher's request for a monthly series of sporting sketches. It became the most famous of all pre-Victorian novels. The central characters, Mr. Pickwick and Sam Weller, are as familiar today as they became on publication. And there are over 100 other speaking parts. The action is set in the late Gregorian period of the writer's earliest youth, drawing on experiences and acute observations ranging from the unreformed election at Eatanswill to the horrors of the debtors' prison. Brilliantly comic, it also exposes social and especially legal abuses, as in the notorious trial of Bardell versus Pickwick. Dickens' satire is both topical and timeless. And there's Gene Wolfe, The Book of the New Sun, it's Volume 1, Shadows and Claw. So Gene Wolfe lived from 1931 to 2019. American writer of science fiction and fantasy. And this novel's from 1994. Sir Severin, a torturer's apprentice, is exiled from his guild after falling in love with one of his prisoners, armed with his ancient executioner's sword. Terminus est. Severin must make his way across the perilous ruined landscape of this far future eras. But is his finding of the mythical gem, the claw of the Conciliator, merely an accident, or does fate have grander plans for the Severin the torturer? So this edition contains the shadow of the torturer and the claw of the Conciliator. So it was originally written as 4 novels, the first 2 here, and the second 2 here, the next 2 here. So this is Volume 2, Sword and Citadel. So exiled from his guild, the former torturer's apprentice, Severin is now the lictor of Thrax, a city far distant from his home. But it is not long before he must flee this city too, and journey again into the world, embattled by friends and enemies alike, pursued by monstrous creatures. Severin must overcome hitherto unimagined perils as he moves closer to fulfill his ultimate destiny. This edition contains the Sword of the Lictor and the Citadel of the Autarch. There's Dangerous Visions, edited by Harlan Ellison. So it's a collection of stories by various authors. So Harlan Ellison lived from 1934 to 2018. He's an American author of speculative fiction. And this anthology came out in was first published in 1967. So Dangerous Visions helped define the new wave movement and almost single-handedly changed the way readers thought about science fiction. Included in this collection of 33 stories are 7 winners and 13 nominees of the prestigious Hugo and Nebula Awards, including Robert Silverberg, Frederik Pohl, Brian W. Aldiss, Philip K. Dick, Larry Niven, Fritz Leiber, Paul Anderson, Theodore Sturgeon, and J.G. Ballard, Samuel R. Delaney, and Ellison himself. And Hal Clement, Mission of Gravity. So Hal Clement lived from 1922 to 2003, American science fiction author. And this novel was first published in 1954. Mescaline, a vast inhospitable disc-shaped planet with oceans of liquid methane, snows of frozen ammonia, and gravity 700 times greater than Earth's, is a world too hostile for human explorers. But the planet holds secrets of inestimable value, and an unmanned probe that has crashed close to one of its poles must be recovered. Only the mescalinites, the small creatures so bizarrely adapted to this harsh environment, can help. So that's all for this video. See you in the next one.